Imagine this, a box locked for 52 years. Inside it, the truth sleeps under dust and silence. People forgot. Files faded. The world moved on. But truth doesn't move on. It waits. It breathes. It remembers. Then one day, a single piece of forgotten evidence wakes up, and suddenly time itself begins to speak. Voices long gone return. Secrets crack open. Because silence might last 52 years, but it never lasts forever. This isn't just a story about a crime. It's about what happens when truth refuses to die. When time opens its mouth, and the evidence finally speaks. Time doesn't bury truth, it preserves it. Time can cover things, but it can never truly destroy them. People may forget, memories may fade, and dust may settle over the files, but truth doesn't rot like old paper. It stays alive somewhere, quietly breathing beneath the silence. It's like a voice trapped in cold air waiting for warmth to release it again. Years can pass, and everyone might believe the story has ended, but truth has patience. It doesn't chase attention. It simply waits for the right moment, for the right person to uncover it. It hides, not because it's weak, but because every truth has its own time to be heard. And when that moment finally comes, when the hidden becomes visible, everything changes. The lies collapse, the silence breaks, and the past finally exhales what it's been holding for so long, because what time tries to cover, truth always remembers. The smallest clue can outlive the loudest crime. Sometimes, it's not the big pieces of evidence that solve a mystery, it's the smallest, quietest clue that refuses to die. A single hair, a drop of blood, a smudge on an old photograph, something so tiny that everyone overlooked it for years. But that little piece holds everything. It carries the story that no one else could tell. The loudest crimes are often built on confidence. People thinking they'll never be caught, that time will erase their tracks. But time doesn't erase what truth has already touched. Even a small trace, left by accident, hidden in dust, can become the key that unlocks decades of silence. Imagine one forgotten object sitting in a box for 52 years, waiting for the right technology to understand its language. It doesn't change, it doesn't fade, it simply waits. And when the day comes, that small clue speaks louder than every lie that tried to bury it. That's the power of evidence. It doesn't need witnesses or words. It doesn't forget or get afraid. It stays silent until science gives it a voice. And when it finally speaks, even the biggest crimes, no matter how loud, how brutal, or how carefully hidden, fall apart. Because the smallest clue always remembers what the world forgets. The past watches the present. The past never really disappears. It just watches quietly, waiting for the right moment to be seen again. People move on, cities change, generations come and go, but the past stays where it is, patient, unmoving, observant. Every cold case, every unsolved mystery sits silently in its file, watching the world grow older, watching the tools of truth evolve. The past doesn't chase us. It waits for us to turn around. It holds the answers we were once too blind or too afraid to see. And when science advances, when courage returns, when someone finally dares to reopen that old box, the past leans forward and whispers, "I've been here all along." Every piece of evidence, every unanswered question, watches time pass like a witness trapped between two worlds, the world of what was and the world of what is. And though it cannot speak, it remembers. It remembers the sound of that night, the faces, the fear, the moment everything changed. Decades may pass, but the past never lets go. It leaves clues like footprints in snow, faint, but still there. And when truth finally comes looking, those footprints lead it home, because the past isn't dead, it's patient, and patience always wins when the present is finally ready to listen. Some secrets rot, others glow. Not every secret fades away with time. Some begin to rot, while others start to glow. The rotten ones are filled with guilt, lies, and fear. They infect everything around them. Families break, lives change, and people live years pretending not to smell the truth decaying inside them. Those kinds of secrets eat through generations. They turn laughter into silence, memories into guilt, and peace into paranoia. But there's another kind of secret, the one that glows quietly in the dark. It isn't born from lies. It's born from truth waiting to be seen. It's the kind that grows stronger with time, that shines brighter the longer it's hidden. These are the secrets that pull investigators back to their desks decades later, that make people open old boxes and look again, because deep down, everyone can feel when something isn't finished. Some secrets want to stay buried. But others fight to come out. They glow beneath the weight of time, through paper, through silence, through memory. You can cover them, but you can't stop the light leaking through. And when someone finally dares to follow that faint glow, they find everything. That's how the truth works. It doesn't scream for attention. It hums softly beneath the noise. It waits for darkness to grow deep enough for its light to be seen, because not all secrets die in silence. Some survive by glowing. Guilt ages like a scar. Guilt doesn't disappear with time. It simply learns how to hide. A person can change their name, move to a new city, start a new life, and tell themselves that the past is gone. But guilt doesn't age the way people do. It doesn't wrinkle. It doesn't fade. It doesn't forget. It stays under the skin, quiet but alive, pulsing every time a memory slips through. For years, someone can pretend they're free, smiling, working, raising a family, but deep down that scar burns. Sometimes it burns in silence. Sometimes it burns in dreams. Sometimes it burns in the way their eyes avoid mirrors, or how they flinch when they hear a certain sound. Guilt never sleeps comfortably. As decades pass, guilt changes shape. It stops being fear of being caught and becomes fear of being remembered, because the longer someone hides, the more they start to realize that time is not an escape, it's a slow confession. Every heartbeat whispers what their lips refuse to say. And when the knock finally comes on the door, maybe 52 years later, they already know why. Because deep down, guilt has been waiting for that sound. It's the echo of what they buried, coming back to life. Guilt doesn't vanish. It grows roots. And no matter how far someone runs, those roots always find their way home. Evidence has memory. Evidence doesn't forget. It remembers everything, even when people don't. Long after the witnesses are gone, long after the case files have yellowed with age, evidence still holds its story. It's quiet, patient, and loyal to the truth. A single fingerprint, a fiber, a piece of metal, a drop of blood, each one carries memories of what really happened. It doesn't speak in words, but in marks, traces, and patterns that never fade. You can try to bury it under time, lock it in boxes, or label it unsolved, but evidence doesn't die. It sits there, like a frozen moment, waiting for someone to ask the right question, or for technology to finally be advanced enough to understand what it's been saying all along. In the 1970s, investigators didn't have DNA databases, advanced tools, or digital records. They only had instinct. But decades later, that same piece of evidence, once ignored, became the loudest witness in the room. It spoke for those who couldn't. It told the story the criminal thought would never be told again. Evidence has no emotion, no bias, no fear. It doesn't take sides. It simply remembers. And when the right person finally listens, those memories turn into truth. That's why justice, though delayed, never dies. Because every piece of evidence holds a heartbeat of the past, waiting to be heard again. Closure isn't justice. It's resurrection. Closure sounds like the end of pain. But in truth, it's the moment pain finally gets a voice. When a case is solved after half a century, people imagine joy, celebration, relief. But when that truth finally surfaces, it doesn't heal everything. It opens every wound that time only covered, not cured. Families who spent years wondering what really happened suddenly have the answer, but the answer comes with pictures, names, and memories they tried to forget. They realize that closure isn't a door closing, it's a door reopening to a past they thought was gone. Yet, that's what makes it powerful, because closure isn't about forgetting. It's about facing what has been hiding in the dark. It's about looking straight into the truth, no matter how painful, and saying, "Now I know." That knowledge brings peace, not because it erases the suffering, but because it finally makes the silence make sense. In those moments, justice doesn't feel like victory. It feels like resurrection. The lost are spoken for, the forgotten are named again, and the truth, long buried beneath dust and denial, breathes once more. That sips what real closure is. Not comfort, not relief, but truth brought back to life. It hurts, it shakes, it changes everything, yet it sips the only way the story can finally raw. Technology is the hand of time. Technology became the bridge between yesterday and today, the unseen hand of time that reached back and touched the past. What once was impossible in the 1970s now became possible with a single strand of DNA, a hidden fingerprint, or a trace of dust no one noticed before. What old detectives could only dream of proving, new machines could finally confirm. For decades, evidence waited in silence, stored in dusty boxes, forgotten shelves, or locked vaults. But technology doesn't forget. It evolves. It grows sharper, smarter, and faster with every passing year. And one day, it returns to the same case files everyone gave up on, not to read them, but to listen to what they've been trying to say all along. A machine doesn't get tired, emotional, or afraid of what it might find. It sees what human eyes missed. It hears what memory lost. It becomes the voice for those who can no longer speak. And when that voice emerges, through a DNA match, a forensic scan, a digital reconstruction, it sups as if time itself is speaking, saying, "I didn't forget, I was just waiting for the right tools." Technology doesn't just solve mysteries. It redeems time. It proves that even after half a century, truth can still rise. It connects generations, the detective who collected the evidence, and the one who finally solved it. Two lives separated by decades, united by one silent fact that truth was always there, just waiting for time to catch up. In the end, it isn't just science. It's justice with memory, time lending its hand to the truth that refused to die. The investigator SIP's instinct never dies. Some people can walk away from a case, others never can. For a true investigator, instinct isn't just part of the job, it's a heartbeat that never stops echoing. Even after retirement, even after decades have passed, that one unsolved name or missing face still lives inside them. It haunts them in quiet moments, visits in their dreams, whispers every time they pass a police station or see an old headline. That's what separates a detective from everyone else. They don't just follow evidence, they feel it. They sense when something isn't finished, when silence feels too heavy, when the truth is still breathing somewhere beneath the dust. That feeling never dies, no matter how much time passes. Sometimes, it takes one retired officer reopening a file just out of curiosity, only to realize their instinct was right all along. Sometimes, it's a new detective reading an old report and feeling that same pull, that same quiet voice saying, "Look again." And when they do, they find what everyone else missed. The human heart can be one of the most powerful tools in an investigation. Machines can analyze, DNA can reveal, but instinct, that unexplainable connection to truth, is what keeps cold cases alive. It's what keeps hope burning in the dark. Because justice doesn't always arrive through technology or science. Sometimes it comes through a feeling that refuses to die. And that's why, even 52 years later, when everyone else has forgotten, one person still cares enough to search. That person becomes the bridge between silence and truth, because instinct, when guided by purpose, never stops listening. Silence is never empty. Silence is never truly empty. It's full of everything we try not to hear. For 52 years, there were no words, no answers, no justice, just silence. But inside that silence lived pain, questions, and echoes that refused to die. The families who lost someone could still feel that silence. Heavy, suffocating, loud in its own way. It was the sound of everything that had been left unsaid. People often think silence means nothing is happening. But in truth, silence is always moving. It's memory replaying itself quietly. It's guilt breathing softly in the dark. It's truth waiting for the right ears to listen. Silence isn't peace, it's pressure. It builds and builds until one day it cracks open and everything hidden rushes out. Every year that passed without answers wasn't wasted time. It was time preparing to speak. The world just wasn't ready yet. The technology wasn't there, the people weren't listening, the clues weren't understood, but silence knew when to wait. It always does. When the truth finally broke through, that silence shattered like glass, sharp, bright, impossible to ignore. And that's when everyone realized that silence had been speaking all along. It had been crying through the evidence, whispering through the pain, echoing through the hearts of those who never gave up. Because silence is never empty. It's full of stories, waiting for courage to translate them. It's full of truth, waiting for time to set it free. Evil always leaves a shadow. Evil never truly disappears. It just hides in the shadows, waiting for people to stop looking. When a crime is committed, it doesn't vanish with time. It leaves something behind, a trace, a pattern, a habit, a mark that no one can completely erase. You can clean the crime scene, rewrite the story, destroy the evidence, and change your name. But evil always leaves fingerprints on the air. It lingers in places, in people, in memory. Every act of darkness leaves behind a shadow. something slightly off, something that doesn't fit, something that quietly whispers this isn't over. That shadow may not be seen for years, even decades, but it waits patiently. It attaches itself to the truth and moves silently through time, impossible to destroy. And when the light of truth finally returns, through investigation, through technology, through persistence, that shadow has nowhere left to hide. The moment light touches it, everything it tried to conceal is revealed. The lies crumble, the stories collapse, and what once seemed buried in darkness now stands naked before the world. Evil always underestimates time. It thinks that if it hides long enough, people will forget. But time has a strange way of remembering what humans try to erase. It brings back the light, and when it does, the shadow cannot pretend anymore. That's the nature of truth and evil. One hides, the other searches, and no matter how long it takes, light always wins, because evil can run from justice, but it can never run from its own shadow. When the truth finally speaks, it burns. When truth finally speaks after years of silence, it doesn't arrive softly, it burns. It burns through lies, through walls of denial, through every layer that time built to hide it. It doesn't whisper or ask permission. It crashes through the doors of comfort and illusion, reminding everyone that no secret can stay buried forever. For 52 years, people built lives around silence. Families learned to live without answers. Suspects learned to smile through guilt. The world forgot or thought it had. But when the evidence spoke, everything stopped. In one moment, the past and present collided, and the air felt heavy with truth. When truth finally rises, it doesn't just reveal facts. It exposes hearts. It shows who lied, who stayed silent, who never gave up, and who prayed for this day. It shows how deeply people can deceive, and how powerfully truth can heal. But that healing doesn't come gently. It comes like fire, burning away comfort, illusion, and denial, until only reality remains. The moment truth appears, it changes everything it touches. Families cry with both pain and relief. Investigators feel the weight finally lift. And those who hid behind lies feel the flame of consequence creeping closer. That's the nature of truth. It burns not to destroy, but to cleanse. Because when truth finally speaks, it doesn't bring peace right away. It brings fire first. But from that fire comes clarity. From that pain comes justice. And from that silence, finally, comes a voice that cannot be silenced again. For 52 years, the world heard nothing. Only silence. Only questions without answers. But time was never asleep. It was listening, collecting every breath, every whisper, every clue that people left behind. Time isn't cruel, it's patient. It doesn't erase truth. It waits until the world is ready to hear it. And when time finally opened its mouth, everything changed. The old evidence spoke, the names returned, and justice rose from the dust. The silence that once felt endless became a voice. A voice for those who were gone, a voice for those who never stopped searching, a voice that said, "I remember." This is what time does. It hides the truth only long enough to protect it. Then, when the moment is right, it reveals everything. Because no lie lives forever, no secret stays buried, and no silence lasts forever. When time opens its mouth, the world listens, because that's when truth, long denied, finally breathes again.